So this video is just a summary of the thread on Phoenix Rising yesterday, and the main point, I have my notes here, the main point I want to get across really is that no one thing is going to cure you, unless, let's say, a celiac is eating gluten. They cut out gluten, they recover. It's not the same with chronic fatigue, in my opinion. I know it's going to be, what I'm saying is difficult to implement. It takes a lot of effort. I was saying to myself, oh, if only I'd known this for myself so many years ago. But the reality is, back then I probably wouldn't have stuck to it because I wasn't desperate enough. It took me that many years of being in that state with chronic fatigue to be desperate enough to be willing to do what I've done. So yeah, eventually you're going to come to the same conclusion. If you keep doing what you're doing, eventually you'll come to a similar conclusion that I've come to. It's up to you whether you want to save your time or not. Now, I know that sounds like a blanket statement, like this is going to help everyone, but the thing is, my advice, the reason why I'm so forward with it is because I don't see how my advice will affect anyone negatively, other than depriving yourself of pleasurable activities and food when you're in this state. But I really do think it's something we have to let go of for the time being. So first point I have here is stimulation. Now, I haven't really put into words exactly the extent of how this plays a role in chronic fatigue. I really do believe it does play a role. Obviously, if you cut out stimulation and don't fix anything else, you're not going to get anywhere. It's just another weight on the scale that's dragging you down. So for example, or just put it this way, that we're the first generation that has access to this kind of stimulation. If you go back down centuries and centuries, life was very simple. They didn't have televisions with HD watching gore and guts and intense movie scenes and video games where you play a character in a game. Just things like that. I think it's very what's the word? It's not known the effects yet, because we're the first generation really that is experiencing this kind of excess stimulation. Now, I believe that it does play a role in chronic fatigue. It might only be a small role, but it does play a role. And that is my theory of that is that it just keeps you in that state of wired, sympathetic nervous system triggering your fight or flight. I believe it keeps you in that rut, especially if you're doing it daily. So I saw some commenters very typical of how I was a few years ago. I saw a guy called Midge say that he had no improvement on a gluten-free diet, but it was nice that he didn't have any bloating. See, that's a sign to me that you are having a problem with gluten, and it did have a benefit that you were off the gluten. It might not be noticeable by just taking out the gluten, because like I keep saying, you can't do one thing and expect a miracle. It's not going to happen. You have to target lots of different areas of your life, and that's the basis of really recovering. Now, Mitch said he felt no improvement on gluten, however, he didn't have any bloating, which was nice. He also stated that he had malabsorption issues, which again could be gluten related. I'm not saying he's a celiac or something, but I would say his recovery is probably hindered by keeping gluten in his diet. To me, it sounds as if he's cut gluten out of his diet for a period of a month or two, thought, oh, I'm not bloating anymore, but I'm not getting the energy I thought I would, therefore I'm going to add gluten back in. I'm going to sound like a prick, by saying this, but you have to stop making excuses. If you really want to get out of this, you have to really just give up on the things you love, like gluten. Gluten is the hardest thing to give up because it's the best foods, all have gluten in it. But yeah, my message is really, if you're sick of chronic fatigue, you really have to just hammer every aspect. Diet, don't give in, don't cheat, just accept that it is pretty miserable at the time, but you want to focus on the future. You want to build towards a recovery. Now, and that starts with stop making excuses. I made excuses for years with gluten and dairy. I loved my pizza. I loved my pasta. I loved having pasta with melted cheese all over it. I loved making cheese and onion pies and melting whole balls of mozzarella into the onions with the crusty gluten base. I miss those things, of course, who doesn't? But I'm not going back to how I felt back then for that momentary pleasures. It's not worth it from the other side of the fence. Back then I thought it was. I was like, I can't give these foods up. It's the only pleasure I have. I mean, I love sitting down to cooking a great meal and then sitting down and having it. But I'm not going back to feeling awful again. I'm not doing it. The other thing I quickly want to say to do with gluten is, when you cut out gluten, don't replace it with gluten-free X. Gluten-free bread, gluten-free That's no better, because that's just junk food. I would say it's probably less nutritious than the actual gluten food. I'd say it's worse than the gluten food in some cases. So yeah, don't replace gluten bread with gluten-free bread. It's not going to do anything. I've done that, it doesn't work, it doesn't do anything. So yeah, it's very simple what I'm trying to say. It's just, no one thing is going to cure you. You want to build a base of multiple array of treatments and just build it over months. And you are going to see, I don't care if you got this special type of chronic fatigue where it's very different from everyone else and nothing seems to work. I guarantee if you follow the advice that I've given, you will see improvements. I cannot see how it wouldn't. Even if you have like a virus or something, by following the advice that I've given, you're enabling your body to do its job more effectively. I'm not saying you're going to get cured from a virus from doing this. I'm just saying that it is enabling your body to do a more effective job than it would do on worse foods, a not so great sleeping pattern, being emotionally stressed, having a lot of things on your mind, having a bad posture, having bad breathing habits. All these things, I really do think that fixing these are critical to overcoming anything. If I had cancer, I'd do it the same way. Just affecting every single aspect of my life, not leaving anything to chance. So yeah, I know some people will just scroll over this and just be like, it's too much effort, I'm not up for that. But I guarantee if you have chronic fatigue for the next few years, you're going to start thinking, maybe I will try this now. I'm just sick of it now. It took me, 2005, I started feeling pretty dreadful. 2007, I had to leave all my education and everything. I had to leave friends, I had to leave everything. I just didn't, life wasn't working. And it's taken me until last year to have, for the knowledge really, even though it's very simple if you think about it. It's very easy to dismiss simple things because they're simple, but It has taken me until last year to truly see it through, and I'm glad I did now. It's a lot easier, like for example the diet, it's a lot easier now. I mean, after the first month you kind of lose your taste for certain foods that you cut out. I read that all tastes are acquired over your lifetime. The only taste that's not acquired is breast milk for when a baby, because it just makes sense that a baby would need a taste for breast milk, otherwise it would just die. So yeah, if you have any questions, just ask me. But it was just a brief summary. Is it brief? No. But yeah, see you later.